Let's jump into problem 22.6a. We are looking at a change in inventory methods. We're going from weighted average to FIFO. And as you know, when we go from weighted average to FIFO, that's a change in accounting principle. Well, US GAAP terminology, IFRS and Canadian GAAP, we call it a change in accounting policy. Either way, we treat it retrospectively. And to make matters tougher on us, we're going to deal with taxes here too. Osoyoos Vineyards, a wine producer and distributor, began operations on January 1st, 2029 and has used weighted average since inception. Effective January 1st, 2031, Osoyoos changed to FIFO. Concluding FIFO provides more relevant information for its financial statement users. Osoyoos presents one comparative year in its financial statements. Okay, so we're switching from weighted average to FIFO, again, a change in accounting principle, and therefore retrospective change. For tax purposes, Osoyoos has always used and will continue to use weighted average. What does this mean? Well, taxes are just going to follow weighted average. Our books are going to be FIFO, and that's a good old-fashioned temporary difference. Think back to your tax chapter. When we have temporary differences, it creates deferred tax assets and deferred tax liabilities. What do we have here? A deferred tax asset or a deferred tax liability? Time will tell, but we will have one of those things. The change does not affect the tax basis for inventory or the amounts payable to tax authorities. Of course not, because we've stuck with the same method all along. The tax rate's 25%. Okay, so when I see a table like this, I just want to know what the change is from one method to the other and, what its impacts will be. So let's look at the change here. If we go from weighted average to FIFO, which is what we are proposing to do, the change in inventory balance in 2029, it's going to be an increase of $30K, right? Our inventory is going up $30K. If our inventory goes up $30K, our COGS, I like up arrows and down arrows more than pluses and minuses. Our COGS is going down $30K. Again, we have 30 grand more in inventory. It didn't change our purchases, so it's got to change your cost of goods sold. Okay, if COGS goes down 30K, pre-tax profit, our pre-tax net income, our income before tax is going up by 30. If our income before tax goes up by 30, well, our taxes are also going up now. We're dealing with taxes. 30K times 25%, 7.5K is our increase in taxes. Okay, so before taxes, our profits were up 30 grand, but caused our tax bill to go up 7,500. 30 minus 7,500 is 22.5. That's the increase in my net income. My net income's going up 22,500. My arrows are ugly, but hopefully you're following along. On to the 2030 change. 2030, our inventory balance is going up by 48K. Now, it's not going up by 48K all at once, right? If we sort of made the change in 2029, we said, oh, we got to adjust our inventory up by 30K. Well, then there's only 18K left to go up, right? This is the difference, 48 minus 30. So there's 18K that it still needs to go up. So our total is 48K. If that's the case, COGS is going down by 18K. Again, 48K in total. Pre-tax profit up by 18K. 48K in total. And now taxes are going up, of course, 18 times 0.25. Taxes are going up by 4,500. Overall, taxes are going up 12K. And net income is going up 18 minus 4.5. What is that? 13.5, I think, but I better do it in the calculator. It is 13.5. Whenever I don't do it in the calculator, I get it wrong. It drives me insane. 48 minus 12 is 36K. Our net income is going to go up overall by 36K over the course of 2 years. for having made this change. And again, we got to retrospectively go back and fix this, right? These changes will come into effect retrospectively. Net income, so I'm just reading on, net income previously was $360K after tax for 2029 under the old system, under weighted average. $415 for 2030, again, under weighted average. In 2031, we switched, and so it's going to be $470 under FIFO. There's dividend amounts, and it says, first, required, A, state how the change is classified and how it's applied. I think we've discussed this enough. It is change in principle. US GAAP calls it change in principle. One of the few like LE ones. Of course, Canadian GAAP IFRS will call it a change in policy. It's retrospective. And why is that retrospective? Well, it's optional, right? We chose to do this, first of all. Second, it's not an estimate. These amounts are hard and solid, right? Whether you do FIFO or weighted average, it's a known amount. It's just a different choice, a different accounting choice. And so because it's a known amount, because we opted into it, it wasn't imposed on us by standard setters, and standard setters didn't say one way or the other. As a consequence, it's retrospective, right? We opted into this change in policy, change in principle. It's retrospective. Let's continue. Calculate the pre-tax and after-tax effect of the change on net income for 2029 and 30 and the restated net income. So we got to do three things: pre-tax net income, after-tax net income, and the restated net income. Pre-tax net income, I should say, change. After-tax net income change. It's asking for changes there. So for 2029 and 2030, the good news is we've basically done most of this. Our pre-tax net income change for 2029 is plus 30K, just reading this column here. Pre-tax for 2030 is plus 18K. Oops, I did the wrong row there, plus 18K. Our after-tax for 2029 is the net income one, up 22,500 and up 13,500 for 2030. So our restated net income, our net income was 360 for 2029, and we're saying no, it's got to go up by 22,500. So it's going to be 382,500. For 2030, it was 415, and we said it's got to go up by 13.5K, so it's going to be 428,500. Okay, so there is B. C, it says determine the cumulative effect of the change on retained earnings at December 1st, 2030 and 2031. Very straightforward. It just changes by the amount of the net income change. So we don't need to worry about any of this stuff over here. It's just this one column, the net income column. We just go, okay, well, the cumulative effect as of 2030, January 1st, 2030 is it's up 22.5K, right? That's the change in net income. The cumulative effect as of 2031 is the total of the 2 years. It's 36K, like 22.5 plus 13.5. It's cumulative, so 36K up. It next says, do the journal entry to record the change as at January 1st, 2031, including deferred tax effect. Okay, well, let's do the journal entry. I always start with inventory. Inventory is going up by 48K. So on January 1st, 2031, let's debit inventory by 48K. Now, what's the credit? Well, for sure, net income. Net income is 36K. So for sure that affects our retained earnings. We're going to credit retained earnings for that amount. 36,000, and you can see we're off by $12,000, and wouldn't you know it, the taxes are 12,000 increase. This is deferred taxes. Now, when it's a credit, it's going to be deferred tax liability. If it were a debit, it'd be deferred tax asset. It's deferred tax liability, DTL. Why though? Like, let's sort of think this one through, puzzle this one through with me. We got our taxes over here. The weighted average is the tax amount. We got our books over here. The FIFO is our books amount. Let's just look at 1 year. This goes, our weighted average amount says our inventory amount is lower than our books amount. If your inventory amount is lower, it means your cost of goods sold was higher and your taxable income, your income before tax, was lower. So it's a temporary difference. Our income before tax on our tax records is temporarily lower, meaning in the future, it's going to have to be higher. This is going to reverse back out. That's why it's a deferred tax liability. I'm paying lower tax now. Again, our inventory number is lower now, meaning our profits are lower now on the tax side of it. I'm paying lower tax now, but I'm going to have to pay higher tax later because this is temporary difference. It's a deferred tax liability. Okay, last piece. It says prepare a comparative statement of retained earnings for the year ended December 31st, 2031 with 2030 comparatives, presenting the opening balance adjustment net of tax. Okay, so let's get going. We're going to need a 3-line title, name of our company, Osoyoos Vineyards. Osoyoos, a very beautiful part of the province of British Columbia. There are lots of vineyards there, a very warm place. Name of the statement we're making, statement of retained earnings. I don't drink wine. I don't drink really, so it's kind of lost on me, but my wife likes to go there. Statement of retained earnings. And this is for the year ended December 31st, 2030 and 2031. So we'll do 2031 over here and 2030 over here. So we start with our opening retained earnings before any adjustments were made. So we say retained earnings January 1st in brackets as previously reported. So to calculate the January 1st, 2030 retained earnings, we say, okay, well, what was it in 2029? 2029, it was a new company. We started at zero. It was a brand new company, began operations. So our opening retained earnings in 2029, $0. Add net income, 2029. Net income 2029, $360,000, so plus $360,000. Dividends for 2029 are 60. So 3 plus 360 minus 60, it's $300,000. So our opening retained earnings for 2030 is $300,000. Next up, we're going to make an adjustment. And why are we adjusting? Well, because we changed our accounting principle. We changed our accounting policy for change in inventory policy or principle, whatever you choose. And what's the amount of the adjustment? Well, we did part C for this reason, right? We said, determine the cumulative effect of the change on retained earnings at January 1st, 2030. Well, it is January 1st, 2030 that we're looking at. And we've said it needs to go up by 22.5K, needs to be added 22,500. So the subtotal here is 322,500. And we're going to call this retained earnings January 1st as restated, right? And it's just restated after the adjustment. From here, very normal kind of statement of retained earnings. We're going to add net income, subtotal. We're going to deduct dividends, and we're going to get our retained earnings on December 31st. So let's go ahead and do that. So the 2030 net income, we don't take from here. We don't say, oh, it's 415. We take it from here. We take the adjusted, restated net income, 428,500. So add 428,500. Our subtotal, 322,500 plus 428,500, $751,000. Our dividends in 2030 were, 2029 was 60, 2030 is 80. So I'm going to deduct 80, and I'm going to get 671 as my ending retained earnings. This 671 needs to be the number here. Now we'll see if we actually calculate it properly. Let's see how we do. Okay, so the opening balance of retained earnings, we just need to work through. So just as we did, we said last year, we opened at 0. Our net income for year 2029 was 360 minus dividends of 60. That's why we started at 300. Well, now 2030, we start at 300, and this is what we would have previously reported. Add net income, the old net income, which was 415. Deduct the dividends, which are 80. And we start at 635. Oops, I moved something. There we go. We start at 635 here. Now, what's our adjustment? And our adjustment is right here. We said adjust up by 36K. So let's go ahead and do that. And look at that. It did indeed work. The math worked. The birds are singing. The sun is shining. Things are seemingly working. Let's add net income. Now, we don't need an adjusted net income here because we did it the right way this year. We did it the FIFO way, and it's 470 grand. 671 plus 470 is 1141. We're going to deduct our dividend from 2031. Our dividend was 95 grand. And we end at 1046,000. Dollar sign at the top, dollar sign at the bottom. And I think that's it. Is that it for the question? It is. So there is our statement of retained earnings. There's the entire question on the screen. We've finished 22.6a. As always, there's one thing left to do. Hit one of those buttons. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now. The next video in our series is right up here. And if you want a supercut of all of the videos in this series, that's the one down below.